took a back seat in that class because she had. I ain't gonna lie. I think she showed favoritism. You know what I'm saying? Not to be completely honest with you, I believe she showed favoritism, and it's not because I didn't show up or I wasn't interested. Because I showed up for class every day for almost a year, and I was only called on to recite maybe twice, maybe 3 times within that entire year. And at the end of the year, I remember she said, Muhammad Akbar, you've been here this whole time. You should be right along with everybody else. And I remember I was stuck on Kutub Umaza for like the longest time. And it was just like she had expected me to be learning, and I was learning, but she had never, gave me any type of instruction for the entire year. Like they were like her family members were the ones mainly taught with what I remember.
Okay.
It was mainly like her nieces and nephews. But when you came to the to the land and you started teaching, for a lot of us who weren't community, you were our first introduction to Quran, if anything hadn't been already taught by people's parents, which I highly doubt. You know what I'm saying? I highly doubt any of the parents in the TMOA was teaching their kids Quran at home. I just feel like that was the norm. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's definitely something in which is the norm all throughout. Most of Muslims do not teach their children at home. But anyway, I mean, here's what I'm saying. You said you recited maybe twice in the entire year when you're in class, correct? You were called on twice, right?
Right.
And you got to Surah Humaza.
Yeah.
Surah Humaza, just to make it clearer, Surah Humaza, roughly 106 or 107 surah out of 114. Well, that would be, because really I calculated it today, it should be 12 surahs difference, so we're looking at 102. And you're talking about the real small surahs, it's practically 3 or 4 pages of Quran, okay? Don't get it twisted, those surahs are very small. They're not the first 12 surahs, they're the bottom, last surahs from 102 to 114. And so what happened, you said the Quran class, the Hafiz program started up on the land. And you're talking back in 2009. So is that how much Quran you knew when you started the program?
You could say, if I'm being honest, if I remember correctly, I may not have even known up into that surah. I may have just told her that's where I was, So to make it look like I was actually learning, or that I was actually in class, I might have said, yeah, I'm here. When in reality, I might not have even known the last 5. I really don't believe that I even knew how to read Arabic until your classes started in 2009.
Okay, again, just recall that, yours truly wants to make it appear abundantly clear that was Allah Ta'ala's mercy, and the junta, of course, will confirm that this is what we are. We are simple servants, we are civil servants, and only looking forward to please Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. But moving along, you and your 102nd surah went from that 1 second in 1 year in the Hifz program. How many surahs did you, or when did you actually, let's do this, from the time that you entered the program to the program transitioning from the masjid to the actual Hafiz school, which was a duration, as we said last time, 1 year to 1.5 years, I believe, well, 2 years. So how much Quran did you actually learn?
From the beginning of the classes on the land?
Correct.
Oh man, it was a lot, definitely. Because if I remember correctly, and I only remember this because I was keeping up. I had another one of your students. I was trying to keep up with him because I didn't want. And you had made this apparent to me too, that hey, he passed you. You gotta watch out. You gotta do as good as him. It was the now Hafiz of TMOA Tahir. Hafiz Tahir. And I remember what surah I got up with him before maybe we had transitioned to the boarding school program was Surah Buruj. So from up until learning maybe or knowing maybe no Quran at all, within that year or 2 years, just after school. And I just, as you probably pretty sure you're aware, you know what I'm saying, just being a young kid, not knowing any better. I remember if I had stayed in it more or took it more seriously, I could have learned more. But from the time I was in there, in the Quran I did learn, it was definitely to Surah Buruj. So going from no Quran, in 2 years I went from no Quran to Surah Buruj.
Okay. You mentioned the current TMOA Hafiz Tahir was in this class?
Yes.
And you and him were on the same level?
Yeah, at one point until he passed me. I do believe he passed me at one point.
Okay. And you're saying that you learned till Surah Buruj, which is practically double what you learned in 1 year. I just have to make that noticeably clear. If what you're saying are facts, I can go back and look at record, the diwan. We will be able to identify if we find the right records, obviously. But getting back to it, so when you transitioned over to the Hafiz school, how long were you in the Hafiz school, and how much Quran did you learn then?
So by the time the Hafiz school, we transitioned to the Hafiz school. Let me think. Man, this is taking me back. I had to have known almost 2 Jews by this point. By the time we actually got into the Hafiz school.
Okay.
It had to have been at least almost 2 Jews, because I remember being inside the boarding school, and at one point being on Surah Jinn, and that took me a minute. And then from Surah Jinn until, what was the other one? Up until Sultan Mulk, that was definitely within that summer I got to there. Yeah, that's about right. So I had about 2.5 Jews maybe by the time we transitioned into the Hafiz school. Maybe 3 months into that, I had gotten 2.5 Jews, almost 3 Jews.
Okay, so I think this would be a good time to take a step back and reflect upon the events that led to the actual Hafiz program. What were the circumstances there? What did you come to understand was the reason behind a Hafiz program being there, A, as well as to what the purpose of the Hafiz program was, B?
So my understanding,
Yes.
to answer your question A, it was because the community had, because of a lack of a Quranic teacher and a lot of Quranic knowledge within that community, they have requested you, Team MOA had requested you to come to the land to teach the children of the community. And then I do remember friction between, if my memory could be incorrect, but I do remember maybe there was friction between at some point after an incident with one of the students, but this may actually have been during the time of the boarding school. The incident with
okay, but we're not trying to go too far out. We want to stick really with, again, the historical perspective pertaining to the Hafiz program, okay?
Right.
The Hafiz program started, as we mentioned, 2000, roughly about 2009, if our memory serves us correctly. And as far as you're concerned, although you were not part of the, bottom line is what you got wind of was that TMOA had requested yours truly to teach Quran there because there was no one to teach Quran, correct?
Correct.
Very good. And did this come to you through the school system, or was this mentioned at some Juma, or did it come through your parents? How did you get? Okay, most definitely.
It All three exactly. To be honest with you, I do remember. Obviously, I was in the madrasa, and they had announced that you would be teaching there. This is probably after they had already asked you, and you had accepted, and that's when we got wind that you would be coming to teach us a particular part of the day, Quran. And then there was also, I do believe, the first time you had, well, I was made aware of your presence in existence was a particular night on Tawarih. It was during Ramadan, where you had led the prayer, and I believe this was my first time seeing you. And then shortly after that is when you did begin teaching there. And and I just remember at one day, we had just started the classes.
Okay. And so you're saying that you were informed, and it was through Juma, it was through the school system. Practically, it was announced all over the land that this, or all throughout the community, that you had a Hafiz who was going to be teaching you the Holy Quran. And the next question again is, what was supposed to be the purpose of you learning Holy Quran? Did they tell you that when they told you that you will have somebody teaching you Holy Quran? Or had they possibly told you the meaning and why you should be learning Holy Quran and the purpose of it, and then told you had a Hafiz to teach you Holy Quran?
To be completely honest, that I would not be able to answer because it was a long time ago. If it was mentioned to me about the reasons, it was more than likely my mother. My mother had mentioned it to me, and it could have been any of those reasons, because hey, we're Muslim, we need to learn Quran. It's important. It could have been that reason, or it's important for you to know how to speak Arabic because we being the best community in the world, the mind frame at the time was, since we're the best, we need to learn Arabic. Shasta wants us to learn and know Quran. That actually might be the reason why, because they were saying that we need to learn Arabic and learn Quran because Abuji or Shasta wanted us to learn these things.
Okay.
I think they were pushing that.
Okay. So they were saying that you have a Hafiz teacher, and it's important that you learn Quran because Abuji wants you to learn Quran, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And of course, when you said Quran, or when they presented it to being Quran, they really just meant Quranic reading and recitation, memorizing Quran, just like that, correct?
Yes. Just like that.
In other words, there was nothing specific about, he wants you to learn it because of the fact that, there's some kind of a spirituality assessment or some type of a Sufi connection. There was no obvious mention of it being any more than a text that you'd be reading, writing, reciting, and memorizing, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Very good.
To my understanding.
It's actually already stated in the reports of the Allied coalition forces that this is actually the case, but we will not entertain just any point. We want to stay on track. I think the obvious situation here is that one who is giving directives to learn the Quran will appreciate living the Quran. And therefore encouraging living and practicing the Quran more than just go and get into Hafiz or you have a Hafiz, ask him to teach. But we will, again explore the fact that which is going to come out eventually. You did not have anyone to teach the Quran, not just on that land, but nowhere else in the community that you know of, correct? At that time.
Not at a high level. Not at a high level, and not on I guess I could say, a correct level or an effective level.
Okay. No one that you can really recall at this time.
No.
Okay.
But I do think this might be a nice time to shift. I did have a question I wanted to ask you. What was your reputation? What was your reputation within the community of TMOA for them to request you to teach the children? Like, how did that come up? Like, I
think in your questioning you answered. I think that it still is a very good question because recall again you said Taraweeh. That was the first time that you laid eyes on yours truly. So through Taraweeh, but how did they actually get yours truly into the Taraweeh was by the means of the in-laws, the in-laws. An attaché was sent to collect yours truly, or I should say, one of the associate administrators or underlings of their administration, and brought the news of that. They were interested in having Taraweeh there. Actually, for the first time to have the Quran recited in Taraweeh, they never had it before. So they were familiar with yours truly because I had been on the land before. A lot of people do not recall. There was an Eid back in 2000, and it had to be 2002. I would say it was either 2002 or 2001. And at that time, it was a very cold Eid, I recall. I had recited, they urged, after lunch or so to recite, like Surah Saf. I remember saying that I won't read it for you. And then they, encouraged, because they really wanted to see if you truly knew the Quran, unfortunately. So, then they almost said that you do not know, you're not qualified. Maybe that's why. And I said, okay, you know what? I will share some of the burden with you if you will recite it with me. And I remember beginning to recite. Of course, the circumstances, very, very, very interesting ones, because I took on the voice of Khalil Husri, and I had not recited with his voice in a very long time. But yes, we reached at that bottom. But there are some who remembered, that time my brother, Dr. Bowers, at that time was, because he's the one that I went on the land with at that time. So this was back in the early 2000s. But to answer the question again and to just revive the nature of the question as far as the reputation and how they actually understood or knew about reaching you as truly was through obviously the family and so on, the attachés of that at that time. And going there, and of course the reputation at that time was high caliber, of course. Why not? I mean, you have to invite someone to give Taraweeh. You have to have a certain level of consideration, respect. So there was that. There was also there were definitely some very welcoming good gestures as well. I mean, that I must say. I think that the Taraweeh went very well. I mean, it was amicable. Everything went according to how Allah Jalla Jalaluhu had planned. But as we can note, right after that, the Hafiz program began. So that's what happened. At that time, and it was there's some reputation there. Reputation is the best only by Allah Ta'ala's favor. Otherwise, no. So I hope that clarifies that. But I think that a lot of times, if we consider the Quranic revolution, it brought a lot of light to things. And when the outset of the declaration of the revolution, the following year is when Shah Sahib or TMOA Mubarak Jalani passed at that time. So there's actually and it's about the Quran. It really is about the Quran. I mean, what is it that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says? I mean, are we living by this thing? And those who are, realize that it's not going to be suffice to say that I think or I know that I'm on the right way because somebody else told me and I did not verify it. I know that I'm on the right way because I took the word of somebody else. I even had good intention to do it, but although I knew what the Quran said, I would still follow the way of somebody else because my friend.
What you saying? Would you say a lot of blindly following somebody's word, like you said, taking somebody else's word as truth and blindly following was a lot of what you had witnessed,
Correct.
concerning the yes.
Correct.
Because, even if you can go back, and there's verifiable evidence that a lot of people, I myself have heard